Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're looking at a story that honestly is just going to shock your conscience. It's a story that perfectly and tragically highlights this massive, glaring contrast we're seeing in India between top-down digital policies and bottom-up human realities. Look, we live in an era where we're constantly talking about digital payments, the ease of doing business, and seamless bureaucracy. But what happens when that exact system meets someone who just doesn't speak its language? What happens when a rigid digital ledger demands a kind of proof that a vulnerable citizen literally cannot provide? Well, as you're about to see, the results can be unimaginable.
Part 1. A shocking protest.
Okay, let's dive right into the visceral human story at the center of our explainer today. This unfolded in the Keonjhar district of Odisha, and it really boils down to this one staggering reality. A man was forced to prove death, not with papers, but by carrying it on his shoulders. That single sentence right there, it completely exposes the brutal edge of poverty when it collides head-on with an unyielding bureaucracy. Now, the amount in question here is 19,402 rupees. To put that into perspective, in the grand scheme of global finance, sure, it's a drop in the bucket. But for Jitu Munda, an impoverished tribal woman who passed away 2 months prior to this incident, this precise amount was her entire life savings. This was money she had painstakingly earned from selling her cattle, which was her very last asset. After her husband and her only child had already passed away, this money was left behind in the Odisha Gramin Bank, with her brother, Jitu Munda, as her absolute sole surviving relative.
And that brings us to a distance of 3 kilometers. Jitu Munda is a 52-year-old daily wager. When he just couldn't get the bank to release his late sister's funds, he resorted to a chilling, frankly unthinkable protest. He went to the village cremation ground, dug up his sister's grave, wrapped her skeletal remains in a cloth, and walked 3 kilometers in the scorching heat just to place those remains right outside the bank.
Section 2. The Bureaucratic Wall.
Now, what's really interesting and devastating about this next part is why an uneducated man was pushed to such an extreme. Look, nobody just wakes up and decides to exhume a loved one, right? You only do that if you feel completely cornered. And Jitu was cornered by KYC, or Know Your Customer norms. For a lot of us, providing a death certificate or succession papers is, a minor headache. But for Jitu, an uneducated daily wager from a marginalized community, these complex documentation and verification processes acted as an insurmountable wall. He didn't understand the complex banking procedures. He didn't have the paperwork. And without the paper, well, to the system, the death essentially couldn't be proven, so the funds were permanently locked.
Let's actually walk through the timeline here so you can see how desperate this got. 2 months ago, Jitu's sister Kakra died. In the weeks that followed, Jitu made repeated, highly unsuccessful visits to the bank. He was basically told either the account holder has to be present or he has to furnish legal heir documents. Hitting a brick wall week after week, on a Monday, he finally exhumed her remains and walked to the bank. It was only in the immediate aftermath, when locals were absolutely stunned and the police finally intervened, that the bank claimed the situation would be handled on humanitarian grounds and the remains were reburied.
Section 3. The bank's defense.
As you can probably guess, once this horrifying video broke the internet, we saw a complete disconnect between the institution and the community. How did the Odisha Gramin Bank defend itself? Well, on one hand, the bank's official claim stated Jitu was drunk, that he lacked awareness, and was unwilling to follow the procedures that the manager explained. They argued they were just asking for standard legal papers. On the other side, local villagers expressed stunning outrage. They accused the bank of extreme insensitivity and a total lack of compassion. They pointed out a very practical ground reality. The bank could have easily verified the death locally with the village sarpanch or just done a simple field visit, but instead, paperwork won out.
But it is amazing how fast the wheels of a system can turn when public relations are on the line. Almost immediately after the viral outrage, government authorities rapidly issued the death and legal heir certificates. The bank instantly settled and released the 19,402 rupees. The local administration even stepped in to provide an additional 20,000 rupees as immediate relief. The system finally moved. But the sheer tragedy here is that it literally took a man carrying his sister's skeleton to make it happen.
Section 4. Systemic apathy. So, the crucial point we need to look at now is the broader systemic critique this event has sparked among political commentators. Because this isn't just about one bank branch anymore. The core argument being made boils down to this: paperwork over people. Critics point to this incident as proof that our society and the bureaucratic systems running it have become crude. They argue we've prioritized strict, hyper-digital compliance way over basic human compassion and common sense.
Breaking down the specific arguments commentators are making, they point to 3 major failures.
First, for the uneducated, modern KYC is practically an insurmountable mountain. Second, while there's this massive national push celebrating the ease of doing business and digital payments, it completely fails at the ground level for the most vulnerable citizens. And third, critics highlight a real political disconnect. They note that Odisha now operates under what's called a double-engine government, meaning the BJP is in power both at the center, which oversees banking, and at the state level. Critics argue this makes the failure even more glaring, asking why these perfectly aligned governments couldn't ensure basic ease of living for citizens like Jitu.
And finally, Section 5. Political optics versus reality.
This brilliantly illustrates our final macro pivot, how commentators are heavily juxtaposing this tragedy against high-profile national politics. Looking at the ground reality, we have the invisible suffering of the poor, Jitu Munda's agonizing struggle with basic KYC, culminating in him exhuming a body for just 19,402 rupees. And they contrast that directly with the hyper-visible political optics of national leadership. Things like Prime Minister Modi engaging in highly publicized photo ops, wearing matching outfits to play football in Sikkim, or taking high-profile boat rides. The argument being made here is that there's a jarring dissonance between the raw struggles on the ground and the curated images at the top.
Digging a little deeper into that, critics argue that national leadership is increasingly distracted by political mimicry. They point to the Prime Minister focusing heavily on PR, suggesting he's copying the sports optics of political rivals like Rahul Gandhi, or pointing out missteps like mispronouncing regional street foods like chalmuri while trying to appear relatable. Meanwhile, the unedited, ground-level reality is that citizens are actively struggling with basic survival. They're facing inflation and hitting absolute walls of sheer bureaucratic apathy just to get by. Critics are essentially using Jitu Munda's story as the ultimate proof that optics are taking precedence over actual governance.
Which brings us to the end of our explainer today. And I want to leave you with this final, rather provocative thought. Does the relentless push for a hyper-digital, optics-driven system inherently leave behind those who just can't speak its language? Look, when a man has to carry his sister's bones just to prove she is dead, we really have to ask ourselves who our modern systems are actually built for. It's a massive tension between top-down policies and bottom-up human realities, and it's something we are all going to have to grapple with moving forward. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. And remember to keep questioning the systems around you.